Breaking the Silence is a podcast that dives into the intricate and often challenging topics of grief and loss within relationships. Through insightful discussions, the podcast aims to explore how pain can be transformed into purpose, leading to healing and growth. By addressing themes such as inner child work and the journey towards feeling alive once more, this podcast offers a beacon of hope for those navigating difficult emotions. Ultimately, Breaking the Silence aims to guide listeners towards moving forward and embracing all the blessings that life has in store as they embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual fulfillment. I'm your guide through this journey, Renee Wallace, and I invite you to join me as we break the silence surrounding grief and loss, transforming pain into purpose and finding hope in the healing power of storytelling. Welcome back to Breaking the Silence. I am Renee.
And I'm Kelli with an I.
And we are so happy you're here. And at first, even before we start anything, I really just want to say thank you so much for those of you that are listening. Just even all the support so far, and the excitement from all of you. It is so appreciated by Kelli and I both. And yeah, I mean, I love that you all are just as excited as we are. So, anyways, how have you been, Kelli?
I have been good. I think since our last podcast, I don't know if I think that we've gone to the orientation, right? I think, have we talked about the orientation? Because that was last week.
I don't think we talked about the orientation.
Yeah. So I've been good. I've been good. We went to my stepdaughter's orientation for college, and that was really fun. And it's just so exciting and bittersweet. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you don't want to, I don't really know that I have regrets. But, just being there, like I'm so excited for her, excited for my son. I mean, anybody that has that college experience, because my sister said, she's like, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And so within that, part of me wishes that I would have done it because I really wanted to go to OU. When I was in flags, we had gone there for like a competition and I
Mm-hmm.
saw the campus and I don't know. I don't think I was, so many of my other friends, like me, even you had gone a different route. Some of my other friends that I think did go to college, by the time we graduated high school, weren't like super close. So, I feel like my sister, all her friends were kind of like-minded like that. Like that was their path. They were like, all of them went to college. I feel like my son's friends, that was theirs, either that or military. And then even my stepdaughters, and even my stepson, I feel like a lot of their group of friends that they're really close to went to college. And so I think that we were kind of in that different, I mean, not that I didn't want to go to college, but I think even at that, we were almost still that get out of high school, get married still, even in the 80s like that, like still on the cusp of
Mm-hmm.
that, even though a lot of our friends did do college and stuff. But anyway, kind of getting off track, but just so excited for her. And that was really fun to do. And you're kind of living vicariously through your kids. And so that's kind of exciting because I mean, there's places that I'm visiting through our kids that I probably would never have gone to. I would never go to an orientation like that. So it's just kind of exciting to be a part of that. But at the same time, you can't, I mean, you can live with the regrets, but also I think we've talked about every step that you make in your life. Well, it didn't take God by surprise, for one. And
Oh, right.
secondly, it's every step that you've taken has gotten you where you are today. One different change, one whatever could have made everything different. And so, but anyway, I kind of wish I would have gone. I mean, I took a couple college classes, but not that I had that college experience. And I just wish even back then I would have been a little bit more confident in myself to do that. Because I think that's what I was lacking.
The
But
confidence to do it.
yeah.
I will
Well,
say for me, I still don't regret not going.
hmm.
Like, I don't think that's everybody's path.
No,
And
definitely not.
I mean, I am for sure very much of an entrepreneurial mindset. So,
Mhm.
like everything I've ever wanted to do, um, really didn't need college, you know?
Hmm.
And I mean, there was a time in my life that I was like, oh, I want to be a nurse. And I do have like that nurturing, that caregiving part of me.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, even now, like the thought of like going to school to be a nurse, no, thank you.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But and I also just wouldn't for the fact of like I just love creating and starting new things and
Hmm.
um getting to sort of design my life, you know? But I was very
Yeah.
much like that of what you're saying of like, and I think that goes back to not having the childhood and life that I wanted, the family life that I
Hmm.
deserved and that I longed for, that
Hmm.
my heart was always like, let me just have a family. That was my whole life goal, just be a mom, be a
Right.
mom. And oh my gosh, I'm going to get emotional. And you know, give them what I didn't have, you know? So, anyways,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
how did we get there? From just a minute of like catching up.
Yeah. So in that, I guess I should ask you, how have you been? Or what have you been up to?
Ah, well, um, starting something else. I've actually been on a webinar the past 3 days.
Hmm.
And yeah, the whole creative piece of me, just like as I sat in this webinar, just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited of the possibilities with this. And
Hmm.
so getting ready to jump into something, just another piece. And so I'm just excited to start another endeavor, and more so the impact that it will make, because that is for sure my heart, like to make an impact, to
Hmm.
make a difference. And this is going to have the give me the ability to reach so many people and just to
Hmm.
change lives. And
Yeah.
so, you know, and I was just looking and I was thinking of this today as as I was walking, and walking is such a good time for me to like process through things, like think through things. And again, it all just comes back to your story and everything that happens within our lives. And maybe even we're wondering like, why did this have to be this way? You know, like it makes me think, and actually will have to share it in my stories. Um, oh my goodness. I can't even think of the name of the show right now. Ugh. But anyways, he's like, it's like you're reading the script of your life and you're like, why God? And the next thing happens, why God? And then he's like, oh, that's why. But it just makes me think like all the things that have happened within my life have led to this
Mhm.
point, you know, for
Right.
me to help so many people that are walking through the same things
Yeah.
and, you know, just to come alongside them and make a difference. So
Yeah.
super excited about that. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's what's going on with me. So I thought now, like, we'll just sort of talk about, and for people, for my listeners that have been here all along, we have talked about attachment styles in the past, but I felt like it was important to revisit it for a couple reasons. One, there's so many new listeners now with you being a part of the podcast now, and they haven't heard that. I mean, yeah, they could go back, but you know, and also the fact that you're not super familiar with it too. And so I thought it's just a perfect way for you to
Right.
learn more about attachment styles and for the new listeners to hear. And with that being said, too, people are extremely fascinated by attachment styles. And
Hmm.
so the one that we're doing today, which is actually the attachment style we're going to talk about today, like that is by far been my most popular episode so far. Like it has
Hmm.
had so many listens because people are so curious about um, this attachment style and one other, but by far this attachment style for sure.
Yeah.
So, anyways, today I thought we would dive into talking about dismissive avoidant attachment style
Hmm.
and like what it really means when someone's emotionally unavailable, distant, self-sufficient
Hmm.
to a fault, really, almost, you know?
Yeah.
They're very hyper independent.
Hmm.
So, um, to start off, let's sort of talk a little bit about what dismissive avoidance is. They are very much, they're hyper independent. Like, you know, it's good to be independent, but
Hmm.
it's like to a fault, like
Yeah.
to the point of like, I don't need anybody. I can do it all on my own. I'm perfectly fine.
Right.
Um, their their biggest need is peace. Um, like they do not like, there's three things they really do not like. They do not like conflict. They do not like communication and connection. And I'm going to sort of elaborate on that some because all three of those, those are like the
Hmm.
three C's you could say of what they don't like.
Yeah.
Um, and that's because with all three of those, you have to be vulnerable. And that's what it really comes down to. They don't want to be vulnerable. It's scary to them. And
Hmm.
and I should say, like, they desperately long for connection. They really do want it. Like
Hmm.
they want to have relationship. They want to have that, but it's also very scary to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And as I'm
Hmm.
talking, if you have questions too, interrupt me and let me know.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of it comes, well, it does. It really does come from their childhood mainly. Like maybe in
Hmm.
their childhood, um, they were discouraged from emotional expression. Like there was nobody there to model it for them, or,
Hmm.
maybe their parents didn't do it, like, and so here they are as little kids with all these
Hmm.
really, really big feelings because kids have big feelings, right? I mean, even us
Right.
as adults, we can have big feelings.
Hmm.
And nobody's showing them how to express it or what to do with it. And so
Yeah.
they can feel like, wow, like nobody else has these big feelings like me. Everybody else looks totally fine. There must be something wrong with me. Like,
Right.
why am I doing this? Why am I acting like this? And so they start
Hmm.
to suppress it. They start to push it down.
Hmm.
And it's not that they want to be, and so it carries out then into adulthood and into their future relationships because it's the only thing they ever knew. It's what they
Right.
seen modeled for them. It's what they
Hmm.
learned, even if it wasn't, a lot of times it can be the things like, and I might be skipping ahead a little bit, but things like stop your crying.
Hmm.
What is wrong with you? Why are you
Hmm.
acting like that? Like, knock it off, or I'll give you something to cry about.
Right.
Even if that's typically a lot of what was said in their childhood, but
Hmm.
even if it wasn't verbally spoken, it was, um, what's the word for it? Like, it's still implied,
Yeah.
implied,
Yeah.
like, knock it off, or like just the tolerance of, I don't have time to hear this, like,
Hmm.
I'm busy. I've got things to do. I've got my own life going on. Like go
Right.
play, go do
Hmm.
whatever.
Right.
Um, and so they were very much rewarded for independence and not taught how to work through emotions, how to talk about things,
Hmm.
any of that,
Right.
and they very well could have grown up not even hearing those things like, I love you, or I'm proud of you, or any of that.
Right.
So,
Mm.
anyways, do you have any questions so far on that? Like, does that make sense of,
Yeah, yeah, it all makes sense. You know what I mean, we'll never know for sure. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. I mean, there may be clinical studies or psychologists out there that have actually done studies, and I guess it's worth looking into. I'm always curious if everything is environmental of your childhood, or some things are just kind of like your makeup. You know what I mean?
right?
Is everything environmental? Like you're born and you have confidence and everything like that, but things like build up and stuff, that's where you start like kind of creating your personality. Do you know what I'm saying? Well, I guess a comparison of that would be somebody who did have a childhood that was ABC and somebody else had a childhood that was you know, DEF. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, yeah.
Well, at least we got the
But do you know what I'm
alphabet
trying
down.
I know, I was like, ooh. It just makes me, because like I kind of compare my childhood and I think of my son's childhood, although that was not just, it wasn't without any, trials and tribulations and stuff, but um yeah, so I just always wonder that. Is a lot of it your DNA just from your parents, like their makeup that would, I mean, not so much this, but like somebody that's bipolar, that's hereditary. That
Right.
is kind of like your
Absolutely.
your makeup.
Right.
So are some of these tendencies affected by your environment, but kind of like what your makeup was going to be anyway? Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
makes
curious, like
sense.
how much of because I reflect on my childhood and I think so much of it was, I mean, this is kind of so much of it was pink, but so much of it was black. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I don't know if that's a good comparison because I feel like there was a lot of pink. There was a lot of good, but then
Right.
there was also this. But I feel like we're resilient. So sometimes I'm like, well, that didn't bother me. That doesn't affect me. I'm an adult now. But you're like, you don't feel like it's affecting you, but like how much of that still like needs to be weeded out, you know?
Well, and I think the answer to that is even when you look at your relationships. And if you see patterns playing out over and over again, then it did have an impact and you are still living it out.
Yeah.
And I think there's the piece that, um, yes, we have our parents' DNA. And so something that is like a mental health disorder or something,
Hmm.
absolutely that can be, like you said, like bipolar. That is can be hereditary and can be passed on. But this
Right.
is not, and that's the good news about this. That is the thing that I think when I realized this, like I was like, oh my gosh, this
Hmm.
is incredible. Because what this means is this is just something I learned. So if I learned it, I can learn something new. Like it's
Right.
not a diagnosis. It's not like
Hmm.
there's something wrong with us.
Right.
It's really just this beautifully freeing thing of like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
like this all makes sense. And now I have the awareness of it. And
Hmm.
I can choose to heal my wounds so that it's something different, and you can. And
Right.
every person that learns about attachment style, like this is like,
Hmm.
I love when people are like, find out about it. And I mean, and exactly how I was, even of like, just like, wow, like this is like changes the ball game now
Right.
because we
Yeah.
can do something about that.
Hmm.
We are capable of changing, I mean, we're living proof of that every day. Like, I am
Hmm.
not the same person I was 3 years ago, 6 years ago,
Right.
Like, we are always growing and evolving and changing. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
anyways, um, some other things I would say too, like, with a dismissive avoidant, they often have the belief of, like, I'm defective
Hmm.
or I'm unlovable. They'll tell themselves and they'll tell other people this too, these kinds of things like, I'm a mess, I'm a train wreck, I'm weird. Um, One thing I will say about dismissive avoidance is they very much struggle to look within. They do not want to because it is very painful for them to look within. Because if you're thinking you're defective and there's something just inherently wrong with you, like you came out of the factory wrong or something, like to
Right.
look within then is very painful for them.
Hmm.
And they very much use things to avoid, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe it's um, distracting on social media. Maybe it's gaming all day. Maybe it's gambling or like any kind of even addictive habit is
Hmm.
very common for an avoidant because it helps them avoid, right? It helps them
Right.
numb and not have to look inside.
Hmm.
And so they will often too, if you try to bring something to their attention, because they don't want to look at themselves because it's so painful, they are
Right.
very quick to point the finger back and like, well, if
Mhm.
you didn't do this or you did this, or
Right.
they're very
Right.
quick to like blame shift or
Right.
manipulate it or even dismiss you because
Hmm.
they've been dismissing themselves their whole life, right? So now,
Right.
so um, so those are some of the things that they um tend to do. And I will say, because I'm saying all this with so much like love and compassion, because in every single one of these attachment styles, none of them choose to be the way they are, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
what we learned. And it's not that they enjoy being that way, and
Hmm.
so much of it is done subconsciously. Like they don't even realize they're doing it, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I'll stop there for a minute and see, do you have any questions or anything about any of that or any thoughts
Mm-mm.
on it?
Um, no, not that I can think of.
Okay. So I thought from there we would go into like just some of the key traits, and some of this, well, yeah, we'll go into key traits and
Hmm.
um, then share some examples that might help listeners to say like, oh, this sort of sounds like me, or this sounds like somebody I know.
Hmm.
Um, so some of their traits, they'll withdraw during conflict. You know, they'll shut down. They don't want any part of like
Hmm.
working working on a conflict. And if you have any personal experiences with this too, feel free to chime in because I
Hmm.
realized this later in life, like here, like not too long ago, like I realized like I do not like conflict. And I'm working through that because conflict
Yeah.
for me in childhood was very
Hmm.
scary, what I seen as conflict, right? Conflict to
Right.
me could end up being physical abuse, you know?
Hmm. Right.
So I hated like conflict. And
Hmm.
then I realized, like, wait a minute, you can have healthy conflict or like
Hmm.
even talking through something and not even necessarily having to use the word conflict, but I mean, it is like if there's a problem there between the two of you, something that you need to talk through.
Hmm.
And I realized, like, wait a minute, like, it doesn't have to be this big, scary thing that something awful and bad's going to happen. It can
Hmm.
literally be two people talking through something calmly if our nervous system is regulated. Like, yes, maybe if we're
Right.
dysregulated at the moment, we need to take a time out
Right.
and we can revisit this. Like, I need
Hmm.
some time, I need an hour, I need 2 hours, whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going sort of off, but even to say, let's revisit this at X time, like 5 o'clock
Hmm.
tonight or tomorrow by now, that gives 24 hours even to regulate and calm yourself. Um,
Right.
because a dismissive avoidant would much rather just completely avoid it altogether.
Hmm.
Like, never talk
Right.
about it, sweep it under the rug,
Hmm.
and oh, nothing happened. And that just builds resentment, right? Because
Hmm.
we have to, that's relationship. We have to talk through
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Um, and to backtrack real quick, that's one thing I will say too about a dismissive avoidant. When you first meet them, they can show up very, very well, like just really like um, be consistent, pour into the relationship, like
Hmm.
all the things. And this could be friendship, this could be family, whatever. And then once it gets too deep, um,
Hmm.
it gets scary for them because
Yeah.
that's where it gets real, right? The stakes are high then. Like you have to be more
Hmm.
vulnerable with somebody that you're really in a relationship with. You do have to communicate more. Um, you do have, there are going to sometimes be conflicts, you know, like that's
Hmm.
life, that's relationships, whether it's family or friends or whatever. And so that can be hard for them of like, they can show up really well in the beginning And then they start
Hmm.
to like pull away and like, this is getting a little too much for me, you know?
Right.
Um, so the withdrawal during conflict, and well, I just basically talked about this. Then they start to shut down when people are getting too close, when it feels like it's getting like, this is getting real now, you know? Um, they very much avoid the emotional vulnerability. And they're very logical too. Like they are
Hmm.
very like, they don't use the emotional part of themselves because they've suppressed that so much. They are very
Yeah.
much logical thinkers
Hmm.
and they can feel smothered by intimacy. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that or experiences or questions on it or.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I can relate to a lot of that stuff. But not always. That's why I say it just depends. I think I have gotten better with conflict. And I guess that is true. Like, I don't like conflict, but also like if I'm, I'll just use my spouse for example, because I feel like that's more when we have that conflict, I think it's hard for me because like I can just be mad and just want to walk away. And I do because sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to talk about it then because either I'm feeling kind of backed into a corner for one. I'll kind of feel that way. So it kind of feels I don't want to say unsafe, but I just feel like backed into a corner. Then I feel like I can't articulate what I'm trying to say, even though I know what I want to. Well, I don't even know at the time I do know what I want to say, maybe a little bit. But yeah, when I'm kind of out of that, like you say, your system kind of regulates a little bit. It'll just be like crystal clear. I'm like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I think and stuff like that. But sometimes I'm the one who comes back and wants to discuss it because then I think even as upset as I can be and like cold or whatever about it, then I feel like is it feels like an abandonment thing. You know what I mean? So it's like then
Mhm.
I have to come back to it because I'm like, I'm not just so much like just cut off like, fine, I don't care. It's like, no, then I have to come back to it. So that's where I kind of feel like my where I get conflicted because I am so strong here or, I'm just cold or whatever, but then it's almost like I, I don't know, that's where it gets confusing for me. But I think that's what it is. It's kind of an abandonment thing. It's like if I get upset and I want to leave, well, I'm leaving. But if that
Mhm.
person's like, I'm upset, I just gotta leave for I'm like, why? Where are you going? I feel abandoned in that moment.
So that and I'm glad you said that because that takes us back to like for both of them, and we'll get into the anxious, but for the
Hmm.
avoidant as well, there is that for both of them, it ultimately comes down to abandonment and rejection. And it
Hmm.
literally is just two sides of a coin, right? So
Yeah.
it's still the same core wound of abandonment and
Hmm.
rejection. It's just how they walk it out in different ways. So, like in
Hmm.
that instance where you're talking about, like, say they're like, okay, I need to take a break right now. Like, I can't talk about this right now. That right there is
Hmm.
the anxious side of like feeling abandoned, like you're leaving me, you're walking out on me.
Right.
And so there's nothing wrong with the healthy part of like, okay, we need to take a breather because right now it's getting escalated or whatever. Like
Hmm.
we can tell the signs in our body when our nervous system is dysregulated.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
your heart's
Hmm.
racing, your breathing changes. Like maybe you feel like you know where you feel it in your body. Everybody feels it different places. Like maybe it's a
Hmm.
tightening of the throat or you've got a knot in your stomach. So like
Hmm.
it's not going to be productive when we're feeling like that, right?
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
but I think the key thing for the avoidant is to be able to say, we're okay. I
Hmm.
still love you or whatever, you know.
Right.
I just need some time and I'm coming back to this. They could, I mean,
Hmm.
like as they become more and more moving towards secure, I mean, maybe
Hmm.
their verbiage at first, maybe it can only be like, we're okay, or I'm not like abandoning you. I'm not walking out on you. I just need some time.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
reassurance for the anxious side of us. Um,
Hmm.
but you know, maybe as they become more secure, they can say something like, I still love you. I'm
Hmm.
not going anywhere. I just need some time to myself right now, you know?
Yeah. But
And
within that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, that's okay.
But in that, sometimes that's not even comforting to me. I'm just like, yeah, right. Sure you do.
Right.
And yeah.
But that means like they did their part, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That then means this is your part of your healing to do, right?
Right.
And that
Right.
you're going to have to learn to heal that part of yourself that you can trust
Mm.
that they aren't abandoning me. And I know that that's easier said than done because I've done so much of this work and I'm speaking this from experience of very much like it triggering wounds. And I will say this, like when they trigger our wounds, it is not anything they're doing wrong. It really isn't. It's just that they touched something with inside of us that was already there, a wound from our childhood.
Yeah.
That they touched, you know? And so that then becomes our responsibility to heal those wounds.
Yeah.
You know, yes, they absolutely have their part, but we have our part too.
Right.
So, and that's hard to hear sometimes, huh? Do you want to talk about what's coming up with it or no?
Yeah.
And Dave and Michael were a year apart. Like it was just
Hmm.
like one punch after another, you know?
Right.
Um, but I look at that stuff and I think, if I can survive that and I can come
Hmm.
back from it,
Yeah.
I can do this if you know, like if I have to. I
Yeah.
don't want to. I mean, but you know, and
Yeah.
same thing for you. You have
Hmm.
went through some really hard things, right?
Yeah.
And so we can, and that's where it comes down to trusting ourselves, like, sure,
Hmm.
yes, agreed. We don't want to experience that again. We want
Yeah.
it to be
Hmm.
different this time. But
Yeah.
that comes down to like trusting ourselves of that I will be okay no matter
Right.
what, no matter what they choose, because I can't control them.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to make their choices. And,
Hmm.
but I know I can trust myself that I'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do agree with that. I mean, I think I'm resilient enough. I think God has given me that. Yeah, I've seen that, I've seen when things have fallen apart. I've also seen people that have come into my life. Um, for instance, when my son and I were moving out and my mom had encouraged us to go look at this place and financially we just couldn't do it. And these people were complete saints. They allowed me to move in with the promise that I would pay back and it is by the grace of God because I look back and I was like the money I was making, my income that was coming in, and it is just by the grace of God. But these people, I knew these people were placed in my life by God. For
Right.
one, my mom encouraging us to look at this place, which I think was just is exactly where we needed to be. And I still love these people because I mean, they didn't know me from Adam, and they trusted me. And I was even thinking, I don't know how I'm going to pay this back. I was having to pay a month's rent and a half for a
Mm.
couple months, and I was
Right.
like, but I also was like, thank God that I did do that because I thought they trusted in me, single mom, whether it's a single dad that would come within some of their properties. I didn't want to put a bad taste in their mouth. Like if I didn't fulfill that, for them to be like, see, we know we couldn't trust. So it was just such a thing of God and it was so good. So I do know that. And I know a lot of it is me. It's just, I guess and you are encouraging to me because I mean, really, if it wasn't for you, these are things that I probably would not even, um, before, well, we've said his name, but anyway, I'll just say my husband, before we got married, we just knew this time that we were going to do some counseling. And
Hmm.
that was really important for us because we knew that we had had lives before and we really wanted to have a fresh start and invest in our futures to do that for ourselves.
Right.
But these are just some things for me. It's like, uh, um, it's just very hard for me to stay committed to make these changes, because like you say, it's hard. It's hard to look internally. But then I also realize a lot of times it is me. I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going to say in regards to so a lot of times, even as supportive as he, once you're like, I love you. I'm in love with you. I am not going anywhere. Do what you want, say what you want, feel the way you want. I'm going to support you. I'm not going anywhere. But I get it so twisted within myself because I'm like, because he has been divorced before. And so I'm like, and I know that sounds terrible to say. Well, I mean, it's my thoughts, but I'm always like, you don't love me that much. You're not in love with me. You don't love me that much. It's just you don't want to get divorced again. So that's how I look at it. I'm like, it's terrible, right?
I wouldn't say it's terrible. It's your brain trying to protect yourself. It's a way, all this is a way to keep ourselves protected, right? Because if we can put a little bit of barrier there,
Yeah.
like he can't really love me. He
Yeah, I'm
can't
like,
really be in
yeah,
love with me. Like, why would he love me?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
just a way to put a wall there to protect, right? To protect yourself.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
so,
it just seems like insanity as long as we've been together and what we've been through and stuff like that. But I still have this mindset sometimes, and like I say, so within you encouraging me and just some of this stuff, uh, if I don't get better, it's not going to get better.
well, not bad.
So
Like nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Like,
right, right.
um, but that also just comes back to, again, that shows like you saying like how crazy it is, how long we've been together. That's how patterns can play out for people in their marriages for 30 years, 40 years, their entire lives. If
Right,
people
right.
aren't willing to look. And so the biggest piece, the first piece is just the awareness to be brave
Hmm.
enough to look at it and be like, oh my goodness, now I
Right.
see. Like I see my attachment style. And my goal is that from all this, people will be able, by the time we're done, be able to be like, oh, now, even if they haven't figured out exactly what their attachment style is, which my goal
Right.
would be for that from listening to this, but for them to be curious enough to start going to some of the resources that I'll give and
Hmm.
looking into it more and figuring it out for themselves because it's not like it's this life sentence or anything like that. It's not a
Yeah.
diagnosis. It's literally us just learning new behaviors, right?
Yeah.
So,
For sure,
and
because it's not like I'm just like, oh, this is who I am and this is who I am. I'm
right,
like, no, I want to be healthier. I want to, and especially for our kids. And I feel like I can speak this into other people's lives so easily, encouraging and things like that. It's just believing it myself. But again, it's not like I'm just throwing in the towel like, well, this is who I am, and just whatever, because it's not peaceful.
right. And the
So,
reality of it, just this coming back to being dismissive avoidant, not talking about you, but dismissive avoidants really have a hard time. Like they very much will say, I am who I am. This is who I
mhm,
am.
mhm.
I'm happy with who I am. And
Yeah.
not even being willing to look at anything because, again, it's so uncomfortable for them. So,
I was just saying, think
someone
that's just because it's easy.
right,
It's
absolutely.
easy.
I mean, it
Yeah.
is and it isn't easy. It is in the sense that, yeah, I don't have to look and see what's
Hmm.
really going on, but it's also
Right.
really uncomfortable and bad because they're spending their whole life numbing somehow,
Right.
and missing out on connection and relationships and
Hmm.
having that with somebody that they really, really long for. So,
Right.
and there's also, I should say, in all this, it's like a spectrum, just like autism or anything else. Like somebody can be
Hmm.
mildly avoidant, and then
Hmm.
somebody can be severely avoidant. And so,
Right.
way over here on that severe side, they might be the one that will be like, would never even look at it no matter what.
Hmm.
Like, never, like, they just can't,
Right.
They just don't have the capacity to look
Hmm.
or, and then others can like be like, okay, well, I'm open to like seeing
Hmm.
this or wait, I do see some similarities. And maybe,
Right.
then with awareness, and we'll get into this, but then there has to be the healing of it too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so I thought it would be sort of fun for us now to sort of for us to get back on track, to share, which
I'm sorry, do we get off track?
no, no, actually it was beautiful. I absolutely love it. So it was a beautiful conversation. Um, but just to do some fun, um, this might be you if
Okay.
let
Okay.
me pull up mine because I've got them here so I don't lose track of where I'm at. So, and I thought it'd be fun if I do one and then you do one and we'll go back and forth through
Okay.
the list. Do you have your list ready?
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, just what
Okay.
you'd said. Yeah.
So this might sound like you if you shut down when someone says, we need to talk. And if you want to do the next one, then
Um, you value independence so much, you'd rather struggle alone than ask for help.
yes.
Me all the time.
We'll
All the
put
time.
Kelly's name right next to that one.
And And yeah, all the time. But
This might sound like you if you get uncomfortable when people cry or express a lot of emotion around you.
mm,
And I have a perfect example of that. Sometimes when people see, if they see somebody crying or something, or
uh-huh.
it gets too deep, like a show or even a
Yeah.
reel or anything, they might be like, nope, not watching that. Because again,
Right.
like they don't know how to, they struggle with handling their own emotions. And because they
Hmm.
suppress them so much, they don't know how
Yeah.
to deal with their own emotions, let alone deal with somebody else's emotions.
Right.
So, okay.
So for me, in that sense, it might be different for me because a lot of times I think well maybe it's my empathetic side that especially with kids, even if they're at the store, I mean not like a bratty brat kid because you're like, oh my gosh, that kid's just being a brat. But even in most cases, if I see a kid that's really sad or crying or whatever, it's almost bothersome to me, but not in the sense of like I can't deal with that. It's like I internalize that so much that I'm just like I I don't want this kid to be upset or sad or whatever. So it kind of just like messes with my psyche, but not in a way of like I probably want to comfort and make them feel better.
Right.
So
Right. Or like like to get them to stop crying or,
yeah, just I mean not even like I say, it's not bothersome like, like, oh, I can't stand to hear this kid
right.
cry. It's like it's just, just kind of
Okay.
maybe it triggers something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
You're up.
um you've been told you're cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable.
Mm. Um, this might sound like you if you feel safer keeping people at arm's length, even if you're in a relationship.
Nope, never even thought that.
Never crossed my mind for a minute.
Okay, you end things, friendships, jobs, relationships, the moment they get too intense.
Hmm. Okay. This might sound like you if you pride yourself on not needing anyone, but secretly feel a little lonely.
Hmm. You love your people deeply, but struggle to show it in ways they recognize.
And that could even show up in like ways of like maybe if you have a hard time saying I love you or anything like
Hmm.
that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, this, let's see. This might sound like you if you feel overwhelmed or even annoyed when someone tries to get too close.
You grew up hearing things like don't cry, toughen up, or handle it yourself.
So if any of those hit home, like, really, we just want to say there is like no shame here in that at all. And I have no problem sharing my attachment style. I figure I will share mine. And if you go to past episodes, you'd find out anyways, but I'll share mine like once we go through them. Um,
Mhm.
and once we, yeah, so that way you understand. Once we go through all three of them. Well, I should say there's four. There's three insecure attachment styles. There's the anxious, the dismissive avoidant, and then the fearful avoidant, and the secure attachment, which that's what we all ultimately should be working towards. We want to be secure and have healthy relationships.
Right.
But so really everything I'm sharing here, like Kelly and I both, there is no shame in it whatsoever. This is
Mhm.
not something that any of us chose. It's
Mhm.
something that we learned, that we were taught from life experiences. And so these are just patterns, and we use them to protect ourselves, you know? Um, like I said, they started often in childhood. I mean, there can also be other life experiences along the way that just
Mhm.
ingrain it even more.
Right.
But it typically starts in childhood. And when emotions didn't necessarily feel safe or welcome, you know? And the good news is that with awareness, we can shift that. And awareness is definitely the first piece, but we can't just stop there. Like, we can't just say, oh, I'm a dismissive avoidant. I have the awareness of that. I am who I am. Like, there's still the responsibility then, if you
Right,
want healthy relationships,
right.
to say, okay, like I need to heal that, and begin to take those steps. And we'll even get into a little bit of that real quick. So, anyways, I do want to say, like, a lot of times I feel like dismissive avoidants are very much misunderstood. Like, if you look on social media,
Hmm.
people like just are they bash them for no better
Hmm.
word. Like, I really cannot stand to even see it sometimes because people are so mean. And if they really understood their own issues, or not issues,
Right,
but their own
right,
attachment style, they'd know they
right,
have their own work to do. And
right.
it just presents in two different ways, right? So,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
anxious that maybe is trying to come close, and the avoidance like,
Hmm.
whoa, like, and they're trying to back up some, like, this is too
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Um, but they really do want relationship and love, and they
Hmm.
really are, they're not bad people. They're not like these awful people.
Right.
Um, so they just learned to suppress. That's all it is.
Hmm.
And so for them to express the emotion that maybe might be easier for somebody else, it's a struggle for them.
Yeah.
Um, so they do um, fear dependence on people
Hmm.
because they fear engulfment.
Right.
Like, um, so I think it's important just to be aware of they're
Hmm.
not, they just have woundings just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And there needs to be so much compassion there and
Hmm.
empathy. And I think, and I'm going to get into that here in a minute, when we can show up from a compassionate place,
Hmm.
that gives them the space to heal if they choose to.
Do you think that independence part of that though? Because well, I think that to me that shows like just to use this word like right off the top of my head, I think it shows vulnerability, weakness, and almost like not that it would be used against you, but it's like I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, I feel like yeah, I can carry these 50 bags of groceries in by myself on one trip. I don't need your help, and I'm gonna get the door. And all the while I'm going, I really wish they would get the door for me, but no way, no way.
Right.
I'm gonna do this by myself. But I think that's what it is, and I don't know why that has always been so hard for me to really just relinquish that, like just to be like, yeah, babe, thanks. Thanks for getting the door for me. Thanks for carrying those groceries in. I'm like, I mean, not always, but for the
Right.
most part, that has been me. Like part of me is like, again, when I'm like on the outside of that, I'll be like, that sounds so nice to say. And why not? Yeah, sure, babe, do that for me. That'd be great. I would love that. But the part of me is like holds on so tight, like, no way, man. I'm gonna do it myself. I don't need your help. And it's so incredibly unfair on my part because
Mm,
just like for me, I want to help you. I would want to help you. Let me get the door. Let me help you, I mean, and stuff like that. And then to kind of that person is being rejected
right.
because of so it's such a yeah, and just like we've talked about blessings, when you don't do something, let somebody do something for you, give something, but you were denying them. So it's such a battle. It really is such a battle, and I just don't know why. But that's what I was, and not that I ever feel like I don't know that I ever felt like anybody held it over my head, like I helped you or whatever, or has made me feel like, and as simple as this is, like I'll do the laundry and the clothes basket will be downstairs. And I know I can carry it upstairs. And then my spouse will be like, hey, I'll carry that upstairs for you. And I'm like, I do not want to let you carry that upstairs for me because I mean, what is that? It's just so much. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, thanks. But I'm like, it's almost painful, like to let somebody do that for me.
Hmm.
It's almost like, I mean, just to be totally frank, I mean, and not always, not always. Sometimes I just go with the flow. Hey, that was sweet of you. Thanks for doing that for me. And I let it go. But I think when that part of me, like really just that inner part of me, it almost pisses me off. Like, why did you let him do that? It's just such a battle within myself.
Mm,
I don't get it. The intensity of it sometimes.
mm. I
So,
have someone in my life that I feel like it's very much like a struggle for them to allow me sometimes to do nice things for them.
hmm
And I feel like it's getting much better in them receiving it, like
hmm
and me just asking like, you really struggle with letting me do something nice for you, don't you?
Yeah,
Um and but then also that maybe coming down to, did they ever have somebody do really nice things for them like that? Or,
yeah,
acts of service, like bringing food or,
hmm
whatever it is, like whatever.
yeah,
And me just even letting them know,
hmm
like you and I've talked about, like, I like doing nice things for you. Like it makes me
yeah,
feel good too. Like I like doing it for you. That's
right,
ultimately why I
right,
do it, of
right,
course. But it
yeah,
also makes me happy, like to
hmm
do like,
yeah.
so.
And I'm not going to throw it in your face. I'm not going to hold it over your head or keep score. It's just, that's just what I want to do. And I know that's on the other side. That's with my spouse too. It's not keeping score or anything
Mm,
like that. And I think that's the one thing that's been so hard for me is not carrying that into the next relationship because I've heard that's not fair that I have to pay the price for your past. And I'm like, I know, but it's so hard and it's not fair. It's not fair, because you look at the common denominator and that's kind of me. But and that is so true because I wouldn't want that either. I'd be like, I'm me and I love you. Don't judge me on other people. So I totally get that. But and it's not even I think sometimes you just do it without even realizing. And it's not really like I'm gonna make you pay for my past or um it's just, and I get that it's very unfair. And I do get that because I wouldn't want it for myself either. Um, but then I've been in relationships. Again, that's in the past. That is not now. That's not where I am now. But even in the past of somebody telling me, um, basically, I told you I wasn't going to become that person and I'm sorry I did this to you because I became exactly what you feared. And I'm like, I
mm.
know. I know, you know? So,
Well, and I do want to mention this real quick, but this would be like a whole nother thing. But you ultimately chose that because you were
mhm.
looking to confirm the story that you believe. Not only
So it's
you,
almost
but
like you
me.
manifest that almost.
Yes. Like we
Yeah.
literally, like
Yeah.
again, if we were doing a 180 method and going through
Yeah.
that, you would totally realize like all your circumstances and situations, you create them.
Yeah.
Not just you. I mean, people in general, me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like, because we're looking to confirm the story. So we pick people or
hmm
situations or whatever that's going to confirm the story.
Right. Yeah.
So then when
But,
it
but not
happens, we're
wanting
like,
that. But you're like,
right,
I don't want
right.
that.
It's
But you still
subconsciously.
manifest that and put that into existence or whatever. Or
It's
like somebody who
yes.
says, you thought I was going to cheat on you, so I did anyway. I don't know if that's the same kind of
Right.
example
So
because
it's
you're like,
subconsciously, like logically, like this part of us, yes, we want this kind of relationship, we want this kind of person or whatever. But
hmm
subconsciously, whatever we are, the story we believe,
hmm
it's going to play out because
yeah,
until we heal those wounds,
yeah,
we're looking to confirm that story to be like, see, I knew it.
yeah,
I knew it.
yeah,
I knew it all along. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Um, so real quick, like one thing I want to talk about is like loving an avoidant, whether it's in friendship or relationship, friendship or like romantic relationship or even family. Like I can share some things that I feel like I've learned
Hmm.
that works well and things that don't work well.
Hmm.
Um, some things like trying to, if they need space, again, trying to always reestablish connection, like trying to come close, like say they need some space and you haven't heard from them in a few hours, and not
Yeah.
like all of a sudden thinking, oh my gosh, they're abandoning me, they're rejecting me. And again, this
Hmm.
comes back to healing our own wounds. Um,
Right.
to be like texting them nonstop or calling them like,
Hmm.
what's going on? Why aren't you responding to me? Like, I know
Right.
you're available. And I might be making this extreme, but
Hmm.
like, but yeah, some people will literally get so anxious
Hmm.
that they are texting nonstop, like trying to reestablish
Right.
that connection. And all that that's
Yeah.
doing is making them want to pull further away because they're like,
Hmm.
what on earth? Like, it's like, they just need time to recharge, basically. Like,
Hmm.
dismissive avoidance, a lot of times when they get overwhelmed, because they've always had to do it on their own,
Hmm.
they want to go internal, right? And so, like, an
Yeah.
anxious person wants to go external. They want to have connection with people. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
So, an avoidant, because maybe they grew up not having anybody, again, to help
Hmm.
them regulate their emotions or process through them or any of that, they learn to do it on their own. So
Yeah.
maybe when they were a kid, they always went to their bedroom or something and they were
Hmm.
alone, they might have listened to music, whatever. So when they get
Yeah.
overwhelmed as adults, again, they want to go internal and they need that
Hmm.
time to process
Yeah.
and like sort of recharge their battery too,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Like, um,
Yeah.
so like say you have an amazing time with them and they're like so present and like the connection's incredible and then you don't hear from them for a while afterwards after you just
Hmm.
maybe had a weekend away together if it's a romantic partner or maybe you had a great time with your kid like you guys went to the
Right.
movies and you just had such a good time together.
Hmm.
Their battery might be tapped out because it took everything they had to pour in for that time. And so they need time
Hmm.
alone to recharge their
Yeah.
battery, basically.
Hmm.
So I think that learning to be okay with space is huge because
Hmm.
and for one, when we heal our wounds, then we can show up totally different for them
Hmm.
and we can hold space for them and allow them to have that space and for it to feel like a safe place. And when they feel safe, and it takes a lot for a dismissive avoidant to feel safe,
Hmm.
and even a fearful avoidant, I would say,
Yeah.
that when it feels safe, then they're like, oh, maybe I can sort of show up here? It
Right.
really makes me think about even the example you gave a few weeks ago when you were talking about like once you got remarried and here's blended family and everything, right? And everybody's like sort of turtles, like pulled into their
Hmm.
shells, like, I'm not so sure about all this, right?
Right. Right.
And maybe peeking out a little bit, but like
Hmm.
still like, we need some time here. And
Right.
slowly, because it kept
Hmm.
continually feeling safe and
Right.
being able to be like, oh, maybe I can be me here.
Hmm.
Maybe it is safe to like share and start to be a little bit vulnerable or
Right.
let this person in. Maybe
Hmm.
they aren't going to hurt me. Maybe
Right.
they really do love me?
Hmm. Yeah.
So, um,
But do you think it's funny? And I wonder if, and this would be a subject for another day, but, just, well, I guess our childhoods, and then just like with your parents, your biological parents, my biological parents, my dad not being present in my life and things like that. Because I feel like these are feelings I've always had with boyfriends, spouses, stuff like that, of that
mhm.
abandonment. Because like with you and I have talked about like I could go, I mean not that I would. I could text you and you don't text me back for 6 months and I'd be like, well, I know she still loves me. I guess she's okay. We'll talk. and there's never any of this, oh my God, why didn't Renee text me back? Is she mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Did I say something that made her think, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. We'll talk and we'll pick it back up like you know what I mean?
Right.
And so for most friendships, I'm like that. Like somebody doesn't call me back, I'm like, I know they're busy. But if it's, I mean not now because my spouse isn't even like that. He doesn't ghost me. He doesn't leave me on red. I mean, he, is always very present as far as that. But like even dating, like, I could even make up these stories in my mind. I'd be like, okay, maybe I would text him and okay, maybe like an hour or so. And I mean, like, you start feeling that anxious or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then, and I think in that, I guess it did establish more trust because I think he was really, um, what's the word? I guess proactive in, well, he would even do like, he would even wanted to put on there like that it was read. So he would know like he read it, so he wouldn't be like, just feel like I was like, just on, did he read it? Is he, and you would make up all these scenarios in your mind, and then you would be like, "Oh, hey, you text me back like I was just taking a nap," And I think I did start getting more comfortable because he was very good about making me feel comfortable.
Right.
But that dating of like just the scenarios. What are they doing? Why didn't they text me back? What did I do wrong? Whatever. And you would just start feeling that anxious feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
And
so I wonder if, go ahead.
no, you absolutely can show up with different
Yeah,
attachment styles depending on different relationships. So, like
yeah.
in friendship, maybe, yes, show up very secure in it. Like, we're
Mm,
good. We'll talk when we talk. Everything's
mhm.
fine. If I don't hear
Yeah,
from her for a week, okay, I know we're still friends. We love each other. Everything's good.
yeah,
I mean, and there
yeah.
has been seasons of our lives that it's like we don't always talk. I mean, sometimes we have
Yeah.
seasons where, like now with this, we talk way more, I feel like. But there's
Yeah.
times that life is busy and we
Hmm.
don't, or, there's
Yeah.
times that we'd go months without seeing each other.
Hmm.
Um, and then you can have, uh, like, say, in romantic relationships where maybe you're more avoidant or more anxious or whatever. And then it can show up totally different with family relationships too. So
Right.
definitely, and even individual relationships. And some of that can be too, there's just lots of different factors. But yes, like
Right.
very much so. Like people will have different attachment styles depending on the
Hmm.
relationship.
Yeah.
So, sort of starting to like wrap this up,
Hmm.
I do want to talk about real quick about just the healing and hope, and even if dismissive avoidance can change, and I will say they absolutely can. Like,
Hmm.
again, some people will say some of the most, like, just like run, like, like just, they just say awful things.
Hmm.
And that just, to me, that just shows like they need to do their own work because where's the
Hmm.
compassion and empathy of
Yeah.
nobody chose this?
Right.
So it's definitely starts with building awareness and learning to look and being like, oh, I do see some of that in me.
Yeah.
And taking the time to look within. And
Hmm.
then, with safe, consistent relationships, that
Hmm.
helps too. That I
Right.
think is a huge, huge piece of it. I mean, really,
Hmm.
the awareness and healing, but I mean, allowing them to have that safe space. And,
Hmm.
and maybe that isn't for everybody. Maybe some people don't want to, but maybe you do choose like, yeah, I really love this person and
Hmm.
I want to hold space for them.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then the next piece of that, I think, is that then starting to look at our thoughts, like doing
Hmm.
the work, like
Yeah.
reframing our thoughts,
Hmm.
learning to regulate our nervous system
Yeah.
because for them, when their nervous system is hijacked, they want to shut down. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like this feeling. I want to check out now.
Hmm.
Um, and learning the communication piece of that. So, and there's so many resources. I told you even about Dr. Sarah Hensley. I
Hmm.
absolutely love her. She has
Yeah.
coached me. I have done like I'm a part of one of her
courses where within that she teaches all that. Like she goes through all the
Mhm.
attachment styles and everything, but she also teaches the reframing of thoughts. And we probably will get into some of that at some point, but I will never be able to like share it with you to the level that she can because
Mhm.
she's a doctor. She's been doing this for like 20 years. And, but
Right.
like, so in there, I would recommend even that course because she gives the tools,
Mhm.
especially for dismissive avoidance, because the worst thing for a dismissive avoidant is like therapy, like couples therapy or like family
Mhm.
therapy or whatever, because
Yeah.
when you bring a conflict to them,
Mhm.
and that's what you're going to do in therapy, right?
Right.
They feel attacked and like I can't do anything wrong. What's the point? I'm defective. All those, it feels like an attack to them. So they do so
Yeah.
much better either on like in a course or with one-on-one with like coaching
Mhm.
or one-on-one therapy.
Yeah.
And she's had like huge success rates with dismissive avoidance.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I would encourage people to do that. And I will actually put her information in the show notes because
Mhm.
she is pretty incredible. And I can
Yeah.
also give some other resources, but I really, really like her.
Mhm.
Um, and then the last thing I thought, I just want to give a couple like promptings, like even for like reflection
Mhm.
or journal prompts. If
Mhm.
you want to journal, if our listeners want to journal, two of them. Where the first one is, where in your life do you pull away when things get emotionally close?
Mhm.
So, and the second one, what messages did you receive growing up about needing others or showing emotion? And I think those would just be really good to just even begin to reflect and look and say, like, where did this come from? Like, what did I believe as a child, or what did I think about that, or
Mhm.
who do I pull away from when it gets emotionally
Yeah.
close? So,
And then what you said was, and I get that because, but you said, sometimes people will say run, and in some cases, I think that's probably not bad, because if people aren't really wanting to put the work in, I think it maybe isn't healthy to stay or to be in a relationship. I mean, just like with a narcissist. I
oh,
mean, so in that case, I think, yeah, if somebody is really willing to put the work in, or you yourself can understand, because I think, like, even you've said, it's like if you understand your attachment style, and this, I think you've even said you have been able to regulate your system and things like that, the way you show up. And
right.
so maybe that does affect that person. So if you can kind of do that, then I guess it kind of like maybe counterbalances or whatever. But anyway, and that I just think, sometimes people, I mean,
Right. And
you
so I
might
think,
you might want to run.
so to come back to that, you're absolutely right. And that I think that again is where if you've done enough healing,
Uh-huh.
then you're going to be able to look and say, okay, I can hold space for them
Hmm.
and a really safe space. And are they beginning to show up differently?
Yeah.
And if so, okay, we're good here. Like we're making headway.
Right.
You have to know your like standards, your boundaries, whatever. If they
Yeah.
just are hardcore, like, I absolutely love who I am, you are
Hmm.
the problem,
Right.
and they just are absolutely adamant and refuse to look
Hmm.
at the possibility of anything,
Right.
then yeah, I think you do have to walk away. And like, I
Hmm.
think each person has to know, like, okay. But if you see, like, wow, things have really begun to
Hmm.
shift and change, and
Right.
they're starting to show up different. Because again, when you heal and you make space
Hmm.
and you're good, like all of a sudden they're like, oh, it really might be safe for me to show up here now. I
Right.
really might be able to come a little
Hmm.
bit closer. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And
It almost reminds me of like the two batteries, like when they won't, like, when you've got like the negative or whatever side and they kind of like push against each other.
Hmm.
But when it kind of gets like that, and then so then it's
Yes, and that
better.
is exactly it. And we will get into that of like even the anxious avoidant dance where it's
Hmm.
that push pull. It
Hmm.
literally is because they just keep trying to come close and they
Hmm.
will pull away.
Right.
And then finally, they might think like, oh, wait, I might have lost her. And then they come close again. And
Right.
then it's just this constant like back and forth. But anyways,
Yeah.
we'll get into that more in
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so so basically with this one, just to recap it real quick, what I would say is um, it isn't a choice. Our attachment style is nothing that we chose. It is nothing
Hmm.
to be ashamed of whatsoever.
Hmm.
I feel like it's super freeing once we understand it because
Hmm.
it's just like, oh, okay, this is what I learned from my childhood, from experiences, and now I have something to work with here, you know?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not a diagnosis or anything. I think that we need to offer so much compassion to people and yeah, be responsible, of course, for our own healing. And
Hmm.
so I would say if you saw yourself or someone you love in this episode, and you would like to talk about it further, feel free to reach out. I would love to have more conversation about it. I think that
Hmm.
conversation is where we can even bring more clarity, even maybe in another episode or something, and like really talk
Hmm.
about it. So,
Right.
and just knowing too that your story matters. So if it's
Mhm.
something that you want to talk about, because I think that if you don't understand attachment styles yet, we can feel very confused. And
Hmm.
that's where we hear things like, I'm complicated, I'm a mess, I'm a train wreck, I'm weird, whatever. And it
Right.
is none of that.
Hmm.
It's just wounding and what we learned. So,
Hmm.
um, anyways, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Um, I don't think so. Um, I don't think so. I mean, well, I just, again, I just want to thank you for this because it is very hard. It's very hard to do the healing. But you have encouraged me, and I don't think I would even be on this road that I'm on and wanting to kind of look at this stuff if it wasn't for you. I mean, you have taught me so much, so um,
Mm, I
yeah.
love that.
So
And I think
I,
that again comes back to like just creating that safe space to say,
mhm.
it's
Yeah,
okay for us to look at this?
yeah, yeah.
So,
And you've talked about just real quick, and again, I don't wish it on anybody, and I hate what you have got to have had to go through with your losses of Dave and Brian and just all that you've gone through. But I have seen you just explode into the person with all these things of who God really wanted you to be. Because I just think, yeah, I just think without that, you would just not be shining as brightly as you are without those things that happened in your life. So,
for
yeah.
sure, they definitely have um, molded me into the
Hmm.
person I am, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
and so that's the exciting part of it. I mean, of course, if I could skip those things happening, that would have been amazing. But you know what? God
Oh,
has
yeah,
something.
yeah. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I mean, by no means, and I think you know what I'm saying. By no
Oh,
means,
absolutely.
I mean, but the glory of that, well, not the glory, but within that there was glory from that. And just within that, because even though they're not here, their lives are still impactful through you. Like
Right.
Bryant still is still living through you because I
Absolutely.
think his life gave you life,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely. And
to
it's, yeah.
you
So
know.
all this, again, like even from the beginning of like all this happening has led me to where I am right at this moment, that some other things are getting ready, that I'm getting ready to create to help
Mhm.
impact people that are walking the same road, and make a difference. And again, yes, it absolutely, the whole purpose of it is to bring glory to God.
Right.
So, and that is what I said all along. If I have to walk through this, then
Mhm.
let there be purpose in it,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
let it bring you glory. That's
Right.
all I want. So,
Right. Yeah. And you definitely have.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, all of you that are listening. We appreciate you so, so much and appreciate that you show up. I know you have a choice in listening to this, and the fact that you
Mhm.
do and that you're choosing healing is just such a beautiful thing. And I will say, I think next time we will talk about the anxious attachment style. So that'd be a fun one to talk about too. Anyways, we send you off with so much love, and we are so thankful you're here. So,
Mhm.
alrighty, bye, Kelly.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Breaking the Silence. As we conclude our time together, let us carry forward the stories we've heard, the emotions we've shared, and the connections we've forged. Remember, the journey through grief and loss is not one we walk alone. In the silence, we find solidarity. In our shared experiences, we find strength. And in our vulnerability, we find resilience. If you or someone you know is navigating the complexities of grief, know that there is support available. Reach out, lean on your community, and remember that healing is not linear. It's a journey, and you are not alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being a part of this community. Until next time, may you find peace in the spaces between the silence. Please be sure to subscribe below and leave us a review. If you'd like to connect further, you can find me on Instagram at Coaching with Renee.